They told me I was in charge, but only when it was convenient. So I decided to take that literally. And the moment I did, everything fell apart for them. I spent 8 years working for a county psychiatric emergency services unit. If you don't know what that means, we were the team that showed up when someone was in crisis. Homes, hospitals, jails, anywhere in the county where someone needed a psychiatric evaluation. We went. It wasn't a desk job. It wasn't supposed to be. But for most of my coworkers, it kind of was. The unit ran 3 shifts, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. On a typical shift, each staff member handled 1, maybe 2 cases. If the patient was already in our own emergency department and they could be admitted to our hospital, a staff member might only actually work 2 hours out of an 8-hour shift. The rest of the time, chatting, avoiding, waiting for the shift to end. That was torture to me. I like to move. I like to be useful. Sitting around doing nothing while people somewhere in the county needed help. I couldn't stand it. So I started taking on extra cases, voluntarily, regularly. And because I didn't like handing off unfinished cases at shift change, too much got lost in translation, I started staying late. Not because anyone asked me to, because I chose to. Eventually, I requested a shift change, 10 to 6 instead of the standard 7 to 3. Management approved it immediately. The rest of the day shift loved it too, for their own reasons. Within weeks, I noticed a pattern. Staff who had arrived at 7 in the morning would be sitting around when I walked in at 10, while an outreach case had been waiting for hours. Their reason? We knew you'd want to take it as soon as you got in. And honestly, they weren't wrong. I did want to take it. But that wasn't the point. The point was that they had simply decided not to work and used me as the excuse. I let it go. I was leaving the building anyway, doing the work I actually wanted to do. But then came the situation that changed everything. The 3 to 11 shift supervisor was a man I'll call Alan. Alan had another full-time job, so he didn't actually arrive to the unit until around 5:30 in the evening. That's 2.5 hours into his own shift. To cover the gap, the day shift supervisor, I'll call her Danielle, would pass shift report to whoever from the incoming shift arrived first. An informal interim supervisor. It rotated until it stopped rotating. Danielle started giving me the report every single day I worked, not the first 3 to 11 staff to arrive. Me. And gradually, everyone just assumed I was a supervisor. Other departments started calling me for consults, asking me to sign off on cases, requesting my input on difficult decisions. None of that was my job. None of that was my title. And none of it came with the pay differential that actual supervisors received. I was doing a supervisor's job, without the authority, the title, or the compensation. And that's when the real problem started. When it was convenient, when a hard decision needed to be made, when someone had to get on the phone and argue with another facility. Suddenly, I was in charge. But when I tried to assign a case to a staff member between 3 and 5:30, they would look at me, calm as anything, and say they'd wait for Alan. He's the real supervisor. And technically, they were right. I had no authority to make them do anything. So cases would sit. Facilities would call asking where we were. Other hospitals would wait. Patients in crisis would wait. All while my co-workers did crossword puzzles and read magazines. Alan would walk in at 5:30, see the backlog, and sigh. I'd shrug. I'd explain. And then he'd start assigning cases and everyone would suddenly get moving. Eventually, the unit director, I'll call him John, heard about the complaints coming in from other facilities. He pulled me aside, asked what was going on. I explained everything, clearly, calmly. I was not a supervisor, not in title, not in pay, and the staff knew that, which meant they knew I had zero authority to make them do anything. John listened, and then he told me he didn't have the budget or the position to give me an official supervisor role. I told him I understood, and that I also did not want to keep being the unofficial interim supervisor every single day. His solution? He walked me back onto the unit floor, in front of everyone, and announced that I could assign cases to anyone I wanted. That was it. No title change, no pay increase, nothing in writing, just a verbal announcement in front of the whole shift that carried exactly zero legal weight. Because the moment a staff member refused an assignment from me and HR got involved, HR would back them. Every time. Because I wasn't their supervisor. John knew this. I knew this. The staff certainly figured it out quickly. The next 2 days, I tested it. Cases came in. I suggested who should take them. Staff declined. We waited for Alan. Nothing changed, but I was paying very close attention. And on day 3, the call came in. 3:15 in the afternoon. The hospital farthest from our facility, 40 minutes each way. I walked out to the floor and announced the case. I watched the eye rolls. I watched people go back to their crossword puzzles. I watched someone pick up a book. I suggested 1 or 2 specific staff members. Silence. Not even a no. Just nothing. So I made a decision. I walked to the logbook. I opened it, and I assigned the case to myself. I grabbed the keys to one of the unit vehicles, walked out of the building, and said nothing to anyone. I was already almost at the hospital when my phone rang. It was Chris, one of my non-supervisees. Our inpatient unit had called, asking for a consult. I told her to handle it. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Danny called. The inpatient psychiatrist had called back. They wanted to know when the consult would be done. I asked why Chris hadn't handled it. Danny told me the shift had discussed it and decided I should deal with the psychiatrist. I told her if the consult was urgent, one of them would need to do it, because I would not be back for a long time. Danny paused. A long time? Aren't you in the ER? I'm at Memorial Hospital, I said. 40 minutes away. Ask Chris to do the consult. And I hung up. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. John, the unit director, calling from his home. I answered. And before he could say a word, I told him I was in the middle of a tense situation with a patient and that I'd have to call him back. I hung up. John called the unit at Memorial directly, had staff pull me out, and got me on the phone. Where are you? Memorial Hospital. You just called me here? Why are you at Memorial? And there it was, the question I had been waiting for. You told everyone on the unit that I could assign cases to anyone I wanted, so I assigned one to myself. I explained that I had suggested other staff handle it, that no one responded, that I couldn't force them, that this was a priority case. A patient had assaulted 2 other patients and a nurse and needed to be transferred to a higher level of care immediately, and that I was nearly done with the process before the evening supervisor had even arrived. Then I said the one thing John couldn't argue against. I was not going to sit around waiting while someone else might get hurt. Silence. I was never told exactly what John said to the staff after that call, but I heard it was not a pleasant conversation. He told them that while I had no official title, any assignment from me was to be treated as coming directly from him, and that refusing would be considered insubordination. Grounds for suspension. Grounds for termination. From that point on, the staff took every case I assigned them. And if I ever caught attitude, I'd hold up the case, look at whoever was stalling, and ask one question. You or me? They always took it. There's a certain kind of person in every workplace who thinks the rules only apply in one direction. They want the protection of the system without the responsibility. They want to hide behind technicalities until those same technicalities get used against them. I didn't break a single rule. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't go over anyone's head with a complaint. I simply did exactly what I was told I could do, and I let the consequences speak for themselves. That's what happens when karma shows up quietly, not with a dramatic confrontation, not with a shouting match, just with a car ride to a hospital 40 minutes away, and a phone call that changed everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where you had all the responsibility but none of the authority? I want to hear it. If this story hit, give it a like. It genuinely helps the channel grow. Subscribe to Recounted Karma for new stories every week. Hit the bell so you never miss one. Until next time, stay patient. Karma always finds its moment.